This book needs to blow up. I found this book at a local bookshop and was utterly shocked to find that it's not insanely popular. If you like fantasy, murder, sci-fi, gothic, slow burns, found family, legal dramas, it's got it all. It's got it all. It is an original, all-new take on the vampire trope. I've never, ever seen anything like this before. I'm genuinely shocked that more people don't know this book exists, so I have to talk about it. This book is criminally underrated, and I'm going to tell you why you should read it. Please, please read this book. Give it a chance. The Vampire of King Street is the debut novel of Asha Grayling. I promise you, you have never, ever seen this take on the vampire story. It draws from classic tropes in books like Dracula, but also has a modern twist. Basically, the premise of the book, with no spoilers, just based on the back of the book, vampires are part of society where vampirism started hundreds of years ago, and it was a problem, and they were killing people in Europe, but then they tamed the vampires, so to speak. They made it so that there weren't that many left in existence, so they weren't as much a threat. But they didn't kill all of them. Some of the richest people got to keep vampires as their servants, or wardens they called them, where they watch their kids, they do the menial jobs around the house. So they keep them in check, find them ways to get blood, and they'd have to stay within their family, never really go out into the world. And that is what's happened to vampires in society. And then we go to the, I believe, 1800s, and we follow this young startup lawyer who, her father passed 7 years ago. He left her a dowry. She decided to use her dowry to pursue education and start her own business, and she hasn't had any customers. At the start of the book, she just started her practice, no customers in sight, doesn't have the best office, isn't in the best part of town, and people think, you're a first-generation American, you are a woman in the 1900s, you want to be a lawyer? What are your chances, honey? You don't even have a good office. She's kind of like down on her luck. And then, first chapter of the book, late at night, she's woken up in her office by a visitor, her first client, a vampire, who thinks he's going to be accused of murder. And it is so good. The mystery is so good. The characters are so fleshed out. Every character is really well written. I thought going into this that this is just going to be a romance, because I feel like so many modern takes on the vampire story these days are romances, which no shade to romances, but I don't want it to be the main point of the book. And this, oh my gosh, it's not the main point of the book. Honestly, there's a slow burn, but it's not even prevalent until you get farther into the book. It starts off with a mystery and you get invested. It's crazy how it starts off. When you hear what the murder is, you're like, what the heck? What the heck? As it goes on, you get really good tropes thrown in there, like found family is very prevalent in this book, which I appreciate so much. I love found family. That's one of my favorite tropes, and I never expected it to be in a vampire book. I love it. I love the concept. I haven't seen anything like that before. I just think this book is fantastic on how it takes such a popular trope in fiction and completely makes it something new and original. And I didn't think it was possible to make the vampire trope original because it's been done so many times in fiction for hundreds of years, but Asha does it so well. For example, there's this one subplot in the book that is about vampire blood and how if people get bit by vampires, they become vampires. But apparently vampires' blood it's different than human blood. So these people, the vampire blood has made them like users in a way. And it's so fascinating. And that's just one side plot of the book. There's so many interesting new components in it. For example, I love Evelyn Moore, the vampire, the main vampire of the story. I love his backstory. It's so interesting. You get to know more about him as the book goes on, but he's very mysterious at first, and you just know nothing about him. And then little by little, there's little things that you discover. And then by the end, you're just in love with this character. This character is so interesting. I don't want to spoil the book, but Evelyn's backstory, there's a lot of found family in it. There's a few chapters that zero in on Evelyn, and how a vampire would feel seeing somebody grow up and die with like a paternal or fraternal feeling for somebody. And I think that's so interesting because I feel like the immortal trope is always done with romance, how they want to be with this person, but one of them's immortal, so they know that they're gonna die. But seeing it from a paternal and fraternal stance, a familial stance, if you will, is just as heartbreaking. And I didn't know that existed. I didn't know this take existed, but oh my gosh. I have my tea right here because there's tea in this book, literal and metaphorical tea. I read this book so fast. I'm not the fastest reader. I wouldn't say I'm super slow, but I'm definitely not fast. I read this in 5 days as a full-time student and working part-time. I just couldn't put it down every chance I got, and it was perfect because it was raining horribly all week. It was so rainy, and that set the mood so well for this book. I was just brewing some hot tea, sitting in the library by the window, sitting in my chair by the window, listening to the rain, reading this. It was so good. I was so bummed when I finished it because I grew so attached to the characters by the end of it. So I messaged Asha and I asked, please tell me, are you going to make another book? Because I can't get enough of these characters. They're just so good. I love seeing so many fleshed out characters. I feel like a lot of modern books I've read these days, there'll be like 2 characters that I think are really good. It's really hard to make every character really rounded and interesting, and Asha manages to do that and leave some ambiguity in some characters' stories, so you want to know more, you want it to go on, you want it to continue. You've just grown so attached to this world and this society, and Asha said that she will be making more books. She plans on making more books, and I am so excited. Please support Asha. I was genuinely shocked when I was reading this book and went on her Instagram and she had less than 300 followers. I could not believe it because this book is genuinely one of the best modern books I've read in years. Probably my favorite modern book at this moment, because my top 3 books of all time are all classics. I'm a big classic person. I love Gothic books as well. I love all of the elements and genres and tropes it blends so effortlessly together that you wouldn't even think it's possible to blend certain tropes, but she does it. If you want to support starting authors, support Asha Grayling. You can say that you were one of the first to read Asha Grayling before she inevitably becomes a bigger author, because with this kind of writing style and concept and characters and storyline and world building, she's bound to go places. So check out The Vampire of King Street